Hey everybody, welcome back to Museum Greg Reads. My name is Elizabeth, and today we're going to talk about all the books that I read in March. So first book should be of no surprise to anybody because I already talked about how I finished it in my March hopefuls. I don't think that's how you're supposed to do it, but that's how I did it this month. And that's Barbarian Prize by Ruby Dixon. This is book 5 in the Ice Planet Barbarian series. You guys know what this is and what the series is. Was not expecting a friends to lovers story. Am I complaining? Not at all. This was a great time. Maybe not my favorite couple or my favorite romantic lead, but still really loved it and excited for the next one, which comes out, I think, this summer. It's nice smutty popcorn. It's a good time. Next up, we have a buddy read that I did with my friend Katie from Katie's All Booked, and that's To Be Taught If Fortunate by, yes, Miss Becky Chambers. I'm not allowing myself to feel any shame for my new obsession with this amazing author. The only shame I feel is that I waited so long to start digging into her work. She's brilliant. This book is brilliant. It's a sweet little novella. It was also Katie's first Becky Chambers, and I was so excited to be a part of her Becky Chambers journey. But in this 150 pages, Becky really highlights all of her strength and skill as an author. So in this story, you're following 4 astronaut scientists who are part of a collective research-based mission. And this is funded by the people, not by government. So this is science for science sake, for exploration's sake. This is part of a mission sending scientists out with new technology that allows them to survive in less than hospitable conditions and for the long distances they're traveling in space. And this crew has been selected to explore 4 different planets. And let me tell you, in 150 pages, the way that Becky is able to describe these 4 planets, you feel like you're visiting. You feel like you're in a movie, not in a novella, and that's skill. And on top of that, she deals with the moral and ethical implications of space exploration because they're traveling to potentially habitable planets. They're there to explore what life looks like on other worlds. Do they use the same building blocks that we do? Do they have the same forms that we do? And what does it mean for us to come in and potentially cause harm or change an environment? What implications does that have? It's brilliant. It's such a beautiful highlight of who Becky is as a writer. And if you've ever thought about reading Becky Chambers, this is a great place to start because this is a standalone. It's just a little 150 page jump into a world imagined by Becky Chambers. But it's not the only Becky Chambers that I read this month. I also read Record of a Spaceborne Few, which is book 3 in the Wayfarer series. I've been deeply enjoying the Wayfarer series. It is just cozy and emotional and thought-provoking in all the right ways, and she builds out these characters that you feel so much empathy for. And then I hit this book and it wrecked me in the best kind of way. So this is a story of the Exodians, and you're introduced to them in book 1 with the idea that they are the last humans who left a dying Earth, and instead of forming colonies on other planets within our solar system, they built a fleet of ships that could be self-contained habitats for the last of humanity and set off for the stars hoping to find something, and eventually finding the GC and being entered into this intergalactic government body. But instead of settling down on planets or finding a new home, they are given a star to orbit with their fleet, and so they still live on their fleet. But this was so much about change and our fears and desires for it. This was about the human experience at every facet and level and what it means to be part of a community, but to long for something else. You're following several characters, all at different stages of their lives, all with different motivations, and at about the halfway point, you realize how they all connect. And that's about when my heart started breaking. When I tell you I sobbed over this book, I I sobbed over this book. It was beautiful. This was such a deeply human story. I don't know how else to describe it without giving something away. This was so beautiful and so moving, and I am so deeply saddened that I never get to experience this book for the first time again. That's how much I love this one. And I'm also deeply saddened that I only have one more book left in this series, because it's that good. Do yourself a favor. Read Wayfarers. Then we have the book that my In Real Life book club chose, and that's Amari and the Night Brothers. So this has been on my TBR for a while. I've had this physically for, 6 months or so. So I was very excited when they picked this one. I had a really good time with this. It was a sweet little middle grade. There was such really good world building in this. You get the magical school without having nothing but white people, and it's not written by a TERF. So always a win there. There was a lot in this that I really enjoyed. I will say, as of now, it is not my favorite of the Magic School middle grades. That's because that title belongs to the Nativity script series by the amazing Nnedi Okorafor. That's Akata Witch, Akata Warrior, and Akata Woman. That series is unparalleled for me as far as middle grade goes, but this was still a really great time. If I had friends who had middle grade readers, I would absolutely be buying this series for them. The last book in the series I think comes out this year, so I'm excited to continue on and see if this maybe can hold a candle to my fave. I had a really great time. Amari was a really interesting character, and excited for more. Next, we have a book that I read for a book tour that was hosted by Eric over at Break Even Books, and that was The Mathematics of Eternity by David Kelly. This was super fast-paced, set in a future Earth that has been controlled by an outside influence called the Atolls that's really hindering our growth and stranding us on a dying planet. At its core, it's a murder mystery, but it has a lot of elements from other types of stories that you may enjoy. It's very much the reluctant gumshoe. So it's got a little bit of that from, like, say, a Blade Runner in that gritty neon noir vibe, but it also has some elements that you would see from The Fifth Element, in that, a lot of the story starts off with him as a taxi driver who picks up the wrong fare and everything goes awry. It just goes the whole time. So there's not a lot of pause, break, calm moments in this book at all. So if you want something fast-paced with a little bit of mystery in a future Earth, this could be your cup of tea. It's also a series that has 4 books. I'm probably not going to be continuing it because it just didn't hit the right spot for me to want to add the rest to my TBR at this point, but who knows, that might change later. And I had a really good time participating in this book tour. Thanks, Eric. And then we're going to get into where my TBR completely derailed, and that's because I participated in the Trans Rights Readathon this month, which was such a fun time for such a good cause. I have a whole vlog talking about the books that I'm about to go over with you, and I'll link it in the cards if I can figure out how to do that. It's going to be my first time doing that. I'm really proud of myself. So I'm just going to quickly go over some of these, but if you want a better description of my thoughts, visit that link. The first is going to be Light from Uncommon Stars by Rika Aoki. This is a sort of science fiction, sort of fantasy that involves an alien who owns a donut shop, a master violin teacher who has sold her soul to the devil, and a trans runaway just looking to find a place where she belongs. It kind of doesn't fit in any boxes, but I think if the synopsis sounds interesting to you, if you like a book that has a lot of musicality, this would be a good one for you to check out. But it is pretty ambiguous, and I can see why people either love this or hate this. Next up, we have an arc from one of my favorite romance writers right now, and that is Mortal Follies by Alexis Hall. And I actually got a physical copy of this. I won it from Del Rey Books, and I'm so excited. But this is an Edwardian era pseudo-fantasy sapphic romance. So this has a touch of magic on top of your traditional Jane Austen style romance. So if that sounds like it's up your alley, this was a fun time. Alexis Hall, his humor just hits for me. It's dry, it's absurd, and it absolutely keeps me laughing from cover to cover. This one was really interesting from Alexis because he hasn't really explored that fantasy world before, at least in the books that I've read. So I'm kind of curious to see where he goes with this. And frankly, I kind of hope it's going to be a series. Fingers crossed. And last, but certainly not least, we have The Deep by River Solomon and other authors. This is a novella by River Solomon, and not necessarily my favorite of their books, but one that I was really excited to still pick up. Now I've actually completed their entire canon. This is all around the idea of generational trauma. So if that's something that might trigger you, warning. But all told from the perspective of a species of mermaids that were born of the pregnant Africans thrown overboard during the slave trade. So definitely a heavier book than the others, but still really interesting read. So that's it for my March reads. I had a really interesting time this month, mostly because I was very chaotic. I'm actually kind of surprised I managed to read as much as I did. And you'll notice a lot of the books that were on my hopefuls did not make it this month. So yeah. We'll see which ones of those end up on my April hopefuls. If you've read any of these books, I would love to hear your thoughts down below, or let me know if there's anything that I read this month that you were interested in picking up. If you enjoyed this, please hit that like button. If you enjoy content from me and want to see more, feel free to subscribe. I try to post at least once a week. Thank you so much for watching, and until next time, bye.